Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another of these really interesting Bandai figures. If you can recall, not too long ago I had reviewed a very large Spinosaurus from Bandai. I now have the Tyrannosaurus Rex, or at least one of the Tyrannosaurus Rex figures that they have out. This one was actually up recently for an auction on eBay, and I was like, wow, I'm gonna go ahead and bid on that, and ended up grabbing it for a decent price, and definitely excited to check it out because I was really quite happy with the Spinosaurus, so I'm pretty intrigued to see how the T-Rex looks. But you can see what the box art looks like. I didn't actually have the box with the Spino, but we have the box with the T-Rex. The box looks pretty cool. And then here on the back, you can yet again see another shot of the figure. It's got a decent box to it. Nothing super over the top amazing, but decent enough. So let's pop the box open and bring in our figure. And here is our Tyrannosaurus. And definitely has a pretty good size to it, that's for sure. Definitely big, just like the Spino was. Interesting color on it, though, because the color is a bit different than what we saw in the box. The box kind of made it look like variations of darker browns, whereas here in person it actually has like orangish brown tones, but I don't think I'd say that's a bad thing. I think it actually looks really cool with the coloration that we have on it, and overall very interesting pose for the T-Rex. Very upright, but the tail's off of the ground. Very sharp turn to the head. Almost gives me the feeling of like a Tyrannosaur that was like lunging up for a pterosaur or something like that. Kind of gives me that feel, or just some sort of, you know, large prey that maybe this dinosaur was after, maybe something climbing a tree. I don't know exactly what the thought process was going into the sculpt and design for the sculpt, but let's move this down a little bit. But I think it looks pretty cool, honestly. Definitely a bit different than your average Tyrannosaurus pose. Very nice looking sculpt and detail, that is for sure. Really nice looking paint apps on top of everything. So let's jump to a closer look at this right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Tyrannosaurus, you can see again it's got some nice looking skin texture, nice fine detail to it, really quite vibrant overall. So it's pretty impressive how good these figures really are. You can see the eye is painted and actually has some variation of color in there, but it's mostly light tones. Like, it's hard to pick up on exactly what color we have in there. Nice black pupil for sure, giving the dinosaur almost kind of a creepy sort of a look to it. But there's some nice variations of browns and stuff that you have here in the face, lighter and darker shades of brown that just seem to be sporadically placed. We also have the nostrils up here on the tip of the snout as well. There is an articulated jaw for the figure, which is really cool. On the inside of the mouth, you can see a nice, very realistic tone of color in there. Nice kind of a slight satin shine to that area as well. You've got the teeth sculpted, and they're all kind of sculpted together, but they don't look terrible. There's something going on here in the front of the lower jaw that looks a little iffy, but the teeth on the upper side look kind of generic as far as the way that they're sculpted. They definitely don't look super high quality or anything, but it's not too sloppy or anything as far as the paintwork goes. So even though it's not the greatest in the world, I think it's okay. And the articulated jaw actually works really nicely for the most part. You can see a little bit of a drop there, but most of the other areas you put it, it seems to stay pretty nicely overall. And you can see again as we move back, very nice application of the paint here in the face. The transitioning and everything is really smooth overall. As we begin to move back here into the neck, you can kind of see some tensing. You can also see some nice creasing and everything here in the neck, especially on this side because the Rex has its head turned very sharply to the right, so you would kind of expect that. But the detailing looks really good. The scale detail looks really good. Nice variation of color again as we move down. You can see the spinal column here moving along the back of the dinosaur. You can also see as you move down here into the side, we have a nice lighter tone in the stomach, really highlighting the detail here of the stomach. You can see all the skin wrinkles and skin folds, and again the skin texture in general, it looks really good. And I love the kind of light orangish brown tones that we have here through the course of the body. Nothing really flashy going on as far as the design for this goes, but it looks really, really nice as far as the actual paintwork goes. As you move down into the arms, you can see the arms are sculpted pretty nicely. Unfortunately, the wrists are absolutely pronated, which is a downside to the figure. So very unrealistic aspect to the Rex as far as that goes, but you can see the sculpt and detail looks really quite nice as far as the skin texture goes, from the chest leading down into the stomach. You can kind of see the lower part of the rib cage there, and even up here in the throat you can see there's lots of skin wrinkles and skin movement, as well as the throat itself there. And you can see in general a nice lighter tone for the underside of the T-Rex. As you move back up here, you've got the hip bone right there. You can see kind of like some larger scales moving along the top of the hip bone. They've really nicely kind of highlighted some of the areas of the muscle definition with some darker tones, and then kept the lighter tones there, which looks really cool, and again just gives it, really nice color variation as you move down. You can see the seam where the leg was connected, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. It's not really much of an eyesore. You've got the kneecap there, and you can also see the calf muscle. As you move down to the foot sculpt, you can see how the foot sculpt is bent with the toes kind of leaving the ground as the dinosaur's taking a step. Nice glossy black for the nails, which is also nice to see. A little bit of sloppiness on that middle nail, but not too bad. You can see the dew claws are sculpted and painted over there. As you move up, there's yet another seam here as you lead out into the tail, because the tail actually disconnects. You have to put it on once you pull it out of the box, just like with the Spinosaurus. So you're probably always going to have a seam there unless you take the time out to kind of conceal it with some putty or something, but I wouldn't really bother. As you lead out into the tail, though, you can see again more variation of color, as you have all sorts of like different variations of browns and orangish browns and that lighter tone here on the underside. And there's a very strong curve to the tail as you lead out, like a super strong curve. I don't know that I would say the tail length is exactly what I would see on a Tyrannosaurus, but it's not terrible either. If we come here to the underside of the Rex, you can see again more nice looking skin texture. The actual sculpting and detailing of the skin on this figure is really well done. Like definitely some of the nicest sculpt I've ever seen on a Bandai release. As you move through the underside, you can see it's actually quite phenomenal. And then as we take a look at the opposing side, the head looks pretty similar as far as what we saw on the first side as far as the paint application goes, but not exactly the same. You can see where over here the darker tones kind of run up there and kind of into the eye socket, whereas over here they run down under the eye and have that whole upper area kind of stuck sitting in that lighter tone. So there is a little difference as far as the color, a little inconsistency. That's not to say that that's not something that you could have seen though on a dinosaur like this, so maybe that could be a realistic aspect of the figure. As you move down, you can see how the skin's kind of stretching and also some nice tensing in the neck, because the Rex has its head turned away from us very sharply, so you would absolutely expect to see that there. As you move down a little further, you can kind of make out the seam where the neck was connected, but that's actually pretty well hidden compared to like the knee. As you move down a little further, you can see the shoulder blade right there, as well as the arm sculpt kind of held into the body in a nice naturalistic position, except for the fact that the wrists are again pronated. As you move into the stomach, you can see that lighter tone there, more skin wrinkles and everything that look really nice. I like that they've also kind of outlined the outer edge of that area with a darker tone, which also looks pretty cool. And then we've got some more random darker tones and stuff picking up here, running along the back. You can see the hip bone right there. Some more skin wrinkles and stuff in the front of the thigh because the leg's kind of taking a step, pushing into the stomach right there. You've got the muscle definition very nicely displayed. Yet again, you can see the seam for the leg over here. You've got the knee in the front of the leg, nice big bulging calf muscle. And then a nice looking foot sculpt here planted on this side, more so than the other side that's lifting up. The paintwork's a little bit interesting down there as you have lighter tones of that light coloration you have for the underside of the dinosaur, as well as the kind of orangish brown tones almost applied in a wash-like fashion, highlighting the detail. And then you lead back up again as we lead out into that tail with the really sharp curve to it. So this thing's actually pretty cool, even though it's definitely not your most scientifically accurate or up-to-date version of a T-Rex. It's still a pretty fun one, that's for sure. As far as a size goes, and it is definitely a pretty decent sized figure, if we turn it to kind of get a length from the tail to the snout, you're looking at about, I'd say a little over 11 3/4 inches, closing in on a foot. And then as far as a height goes, I'd say about the 9.5 inch range, maybe a little over, or about the 24.5 centimeter area. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line. next to our Bandai Tyrannosaurus Rex. And you can see it's, like I said, quite large. Definitely really taller than the Paparex. Definitely outsizes that figure quite drastically, which I think shows you that this is a decent sized Rex. For another comparison, there is a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus standing next to the T-Rex, which you can see towers over both of these figures as well. We've also got some more randoms, as we have the Collect A Deluxe Dimetrodon, the Schleich Diabloceratops, and Safari LTDU Tyrannus, which is standing clean under the T-Rex there, underneath the legs. And then for another size comparison, and this is the one that I think will probably really show you how decently sized the T-Rex is, you've got a Mattel Extreme Damage T-Rex here next to the Bandai Rex, and you can see that Bandai Rex isn't too far off as far as the size goes in comparison to the Mattel Rex, so pretty impressive again as far as the size of this T-Rex from Bandai. And then for one totally random comparison that I felt like would just be a decent one to bring in, because a lot of people have this figure, maybe not this exact paint scheme, because a lot of people went for the JP3 style coloration, but we have the Nanmu, the older version of the Nanmu Spinosaurus, next to this T-Rex, which you can see the T-Rex towers over even the Nanmu Spino. So this Bandai Tyrannosaurus Rex figure is pretty cool, honestly, even though, again, it's not what you would consider your most highly accurate Tyrannosaurus by no means. It is still a nice looking version, and the sculpt is really, really impressive. Like, easily some of the best detail I've ever seen from Bandai. So straight away, it's got a good thing going with that. The actual sculpt and fine detail of the skin texture through the course of the figure is honestly astounding. And it's sad to see that they put so much effort into the actual texturing of the skin and everything, but not so much in the accuracy department, because they could have done probably one of the best Tyrannosaurs that we had on the market. Maybe a little bit of a different pose could have helped, because it does have a little out there as far as the pose goes, but it still again has really nice sculpt, really nice fine detail, and even though the pose is a little out there as far as what we have here, I kind of like it. Like I said, with the addition of the articulated jaw, you can open the mouth to sort of give it the appearance of like lunging up at a pterosaur or something like that. That's just sort of the way I feel like it looks, and with the head tilted up like that, it just has that perfect visual of a tyrannosaur trying to grab itself a pterosaur. So like, that is, in my opinion, if I were to put this in a really cool display, that's the way I would go. I do like the articulated jaw as well. The fact that we have an articulated jaw is nice to just give it a little bit of posability to it, and the paint apps are super nicely done. A little inconsistent from side to side, but very nicely done. You know, the transitions are very smooth. There's a lot of variation of color added to it, and the overall coloration looks nice and naturalistic. Definitely the type of color I could potentially see on a dinosaur like this. It's not too flashy, but it's not, you know, too dull. They did a very good job, I think, of choosing the colors and tones and applying them. Even if it is a little inconsistent, I do still really quite like the colors and paint apps of this figure. And the fact that it's very large is also pretty fun, because I do enjoy a big figure from time to time, and that is exactly what we have here for this T-Rex. So as a whole, definitely a really cool figure from Bandai. I definitely think that I'm going to continue pursuing these, and maybe at some point I'll be able to get the entire line in my collection. I now have 2 in my collection with a Spino and this T-Rex, and I'm very intrigued to see what the rest of the line looks like. So if I do get a hold of more, I of course will review them for you guys, but in the comment section, let me know what you guys think of this. I will try my best to find a link to include in the description, probably on eBay, because they're a little bit of a mystery as far as how you can buy them here in the United States. So hopefully I'll be able to find a link for you guys if you are interested in grabbing one. And also, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.